Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're pleased to welcome Bryson DeChambeau to the interview room. Bryson, your last 12 months have been truly impressive, rising to number 6 in the world with 5 victories, including a win at the Memorial, 2 FedEx Cup victories, a win in Las Vegas, and recently your first international win in Dubai. Can you tell us about your preparations as you come into this year's Masters?
Yeah, well, first off, it's an honor to be here. And thank you, Tom, for having me, and everyone here. Thank you. It's been a unique little preparation this year compared to other years, just because of the fact that we're really trying to fine-tune some of the equipment that I have and really trying to get that figured out, because I've had some disadvantages with a couple of the irons that I've had for a little bit, and just being able to practice and get comfortable and seeing the ball flights come out the proper way for the first time ever in my life is pretty cool. I have been fortunate enough to win a lot of tournaments using the equipment that I've had so far, and it's been great. And by no means is it bad at all, but there's always that little bit of room for improvement. So we've been working quite heavily this past week and trying to figure out some things that could give me an advantage this week.
Great. In your first Masters start in 2016, you finished as the low amateur and earned a spot in Butler Cabin. It was really a great way to start out your Masters career. Mm-hmm. And what are your memories of that moment, and how have you changed as a player since then?
Man, 2016 was an incredible year, obviously winning the NCAAs, the U.S. Amateur, and then being the low-am award winner was just something that obviously a year I'll never, ever forget. And I'd say that the coolest part about that whole experience was being able to step up on that first tee 2016 and, everybody thinking I'm pretty darn nervous, and get up there and I just smile because I was prepared. I'd played over a dozen rounds here in 2016 and was really, I thought, ready to win the tournament. I had a chance to win it, and I knew I did. And after 35 holes, I was right there. Unfortunately, that holly bush on the last hole, 36th hole of the tournament, kind of cost me a little bit. But other than that, it was a fantastic ride, and being the low amateur champion was just fantastic.
Great. Let me open up to questions. Gary?
Bryson, for you, what is more important for you to know where to hit it or where you want to miss it here?
That's a great question. I would say probably how I'm hitting it, because if I know how I'm hitting it, I will eventually know where to miss it because of how I'm hitting it, if that makes sense. Is that what you're kind of asking in a sense? Mm-hmm. So if I'm able to repeat my motion to the level that I know I can, I know what my misses are going to be. I know the parameters. If I go out there kind of blind, per se, and not really knowing what I can do, if there's an opportunity for it to have this huge miss or this third standard deviation, then I don't know where to miss it per se. I may aim way off of the target to just make sure that bad shot doesn't happen. But if you're hitting it better and on average more consistent, you're going to have a better chance to understand where to miss it.
Teddy?
Hey, Bryson. Over here too,
hey.
Right? Where's that balance between trying to play it at a pretty good pace and getting all the information you want to get before hitting a shot?
Well, that's a great question. I think we do a fantastic job of taking in all the information we can in the allotted amount of time. Now, the one piece of information that a lot of people miss is the walk to the ball. There's a 3-minute walk, 2.5-minute walk that people don't take into account. You can gain a lot more time by walking 15 seconds, 16 seconds quicker to the ball than you can by 5 seconds over a shot. And so people don't take that into account when we talk about slow play. I may be a guy that hits it, up there farther than someone, and they're taking their merry time getting to their golf ball. It's behind me, and I'm already up there, and I can't get any of my numbers because I'm right in their line of sight. And so then once they do their whole process that takes maybe 25 seconds compared to my 35-second to 40-second preparation to hit the shot, by the time we walk back over and get the number, do all that, you can view me as a slow player. But in the end, I look at it from another standpoint, saying there's a whole other piece to this puzzle that we aren't looking at yet.
Quick. And is there more information here on a lot of these shots, or the fact that you come back every year, is there more already?
There's definitely, experience helps. I will say that experience definitely helps, and the more I'm here, the more I can start to understand what's kind of happening in these unique situations that present themselves.
Mark?
How much feedback from weekend golfers, everyday golfers, do you get about whether the one-length clubs have helped their game, just for average golfers? How much do you see
I
of
would.
that?
It's a great question. I would say every golfer that's come up to me that's been using it has always been positive. Now they'll say sometimes, I'm struggling a little bit with the wedges. What advice do you have? And I'll give them some advice. And then I'll hear back from them eventually, and they'll be like, "It was great. I'm hitting it really good. I'm having great success with it." And based on the stuff we actually found out last week, we have a way now to make the wedges in the one length set perform just like a variable length set.
Jimmy?
Bryson, over here. We know that you approach things in a very personal and unique way. Does that approach extend to the Masters, to Augusta National? And if so, can you give us an example of how it might?
I would say that this week is unique with the history, the golf that's been played out here, the rules that are out here. They're a little different than each and every week. My dedication to figuring things out is the exact same. What I'm able to sometimes figure out is not as much as other places, but that's okay. Because if we can figure this stuff out in a way that's allowable, then that's a huge advantage for us. So going back to your question, I think that I prepare as much as I possibly can that's allowed here. And I believe that my preparation is a little more intense, I would say. I have to work a little harder to get some insight into some things than other places, but that's fine. I mean, that's a part of the process, and I think the person who digs it out of the dirt the most should have a little bit of an advantage, and I think that's where it's actually a positive thing.
Jeff?
And following up on that, there are no green reading books issued here as they are at normal tournaments. How does that impact your process on the greens?
Yeah, it obviously changes a lot of what we do. Now, I practice trying to understand what 1% is, what 2% is, based on my eyes. And that's really all I can do out here is look at the slope and walk over and try and find the low point and do my own process that allows me to understand where straight relatively is. And then I gauge, based on how far I am, how high the hole is relative to my perception. And that kind of gives me a gauge of how much slope there is in that area. Is it as precise as greens books? Absolutely not. We still have to look and feel and sense with our eyes what it's going to do. But that's really all I can do. And I got to practice a lot more hitting breaking putts because I can't just bring out my contract and go, oh, it's 3% and here it is. I have to look at it, walk around and go, okay, I'm acclimated to 3%.
David?
I've heard you talk about on a pre-shot routine, the air density. How do you determine that?
Well, that's secrets, partner. I'm not going to let that one go.
Hiromi?
We asked this question when you debuted at Masters already, but can you tell us again what inspired you to use same length iron? And also, you said you're in tune with your equipment right now. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so what inspired me to use one-length irons, back in 2011, I was working with Mike Shy, and we were trying to figure out an easier way to hit the golf ball, whether it be swing, equipment setup, and everything. I developed something called a one-plane swing back in the day. I mean, a lot of people have talked about a one-plane swing, but my one-plane swing. And in this one-plane swing, where we would look on a camera perfectly on that plane and see if it was traveling up and down, and I was able to do it. We saw that when I switched from pitching wedge to 9-iron, 8-iron, 7-iron, 6-iron, that the lie angle changed, obviously. And so the plane had to change. So I had to swing on a different plane. So I was thinking, okay, what if we could make everything one plane? How would we do that? Well, I was like, well, we'll just make the lie angle the same and the shaft length the same. And I know the head weights and the length offset each other relatively close to a 7-iron. They always wanted to feel around like a 7-iron, swing weight around a 7-iron. And so that's what we kind of tried to develop and design, is something that would all feel like a 7-iron, because that was actually my favorite club in the bag at that time, and make it still perform like a variable length set. And we were able to do it somewhat successfully, played some pretty good golf coming up through the ranks, and was able to get on tour because of it. And now recently, this past week, won't give too much away, but we are now starting to understand how shafts truly work, what they do based on the mass of the club and the design of the shaft and how it creates a certain launch condition, which has been super beneficial for us in the one-length wedges, because that's something that I've always struggled with. I've done really well with it, but I've struggled just a little bit in being able to control it as well as a guy like Kevin Na or someone out here that's an incredible wedger.
Bob.
Bryson, is someone who was one of the early proponents of using the Flagstick. How does it help you here or not? And is it true that they are different than the ones you see on the PGA Tour, the actual Flagstick itself?
I'll tell you that they aren't that much different. You know, if you got a unique situation where the flag isn't sitting in the cup all the way and it has some wiggle room and it is blowing towards you, there will be certain times where I will pull the flag out just because the geometry doesn't work at that point and the physics doesn't work at that point. So for me, I really try and look and evaluate the situation, see what the best strategy is. I think that's the cool part about leaving the Flagstick in now, is that you start to see players' strategies come out based on what they know about the whole situation. And so for me, on a downhill putt, if it's not windy, I will definitely use it to my advantage.
Steve.
In addition to the no green reading books, I assume you can't take the TrackMan out with you during a practice round?
No.
How challenging is it do you practice this one week differently than how you do the other weeks?
Yeah, you know, I'd say we still get our baselines out on the range, which is fantastic. I think it's great that we're able to do that, because then we kind of have a relative understanding of what we can do out there on the golf course. And we get all our numbers beforehand. Literally what we're doing out on the golf course when we have our devices is just a double check to make sure there's not something crazy that happened in that situation. And so we don't necessarily need it on the course. We get all of our stuff on the range, but it is nice to have that out just as an assurance, mechanism. And even though we don't have it this week, it's not too terrible. It's not bad. I'm still preparing normally like I would.
Jaime in the back.
Bryson, since you've got more room now on 13, I just wondered what your thoughts are about, ideally, would you like to see it longer? If so, by how much and why?
On 13, you're talking about moving it back?
Yes, possibly. I mean, they have 50 more yards now, potentially, to move the hole back.
Look, I don't know too much about course design. What I do know is that if it was moved back, everybody's going to have to play from back there. It's going to make the second shot more difficult, obviously. As of right now, it's difficult to get it up there. It's a great test to see if somebody can a gamble, in a sense, to see if you can get it up there and have an easier shot, which sometimes I like. The risk should be very rewarding if you're able to get it up there and execute properly. If it's a high-risk shot, you should have a high reward. That's kind of what I think. And by moving it back, I'm fine with it. I think that's where a lot of the players back in the day were playing from, a little bit further back. And it'll make this second shot a little more difficult. And a lot of people won't go for it because of that. But to be honest with you, everybody's got to play from there. And whenever people move golf courses around and try and design it this way or that way, it's affecting the whole field, right? And everybody has to play from there. So if you're trying to design a golf course that's for the top 5 people, or to take that ability away from the top 5 people, and I think that's something that needs to be talked about more, because it should have a relatively beneficial effect. It should be a linear effect all the way through the tour, not just trying to affect the top 5 people, because you got to realize if you're affecting the top 5 people, you're affecting it way worse on the lower end of the guys that can't even get it there. And so I think there's this, you look at it more of like a cost, in a sense of, I don't know, what was it, 1997 after Tiger won, lengthening everything. It actually kind of almost helped Tiger in a sense, because he was the only one that could still head it way out there, and the guys that were behind were still behind. And so that's what we just got to be careful of. And from what I've heard from everybody else, that's kind of what we just want to make sure that it's still playable for everyone, and we can still all reach it if we hit a good drive.
Joy.
Bryson, I'm sure you're aware of the stat that 2 of the last 3 Dubai Desert Classic winners have gone on to win the Masters.
Yeah.
With your scientific and mathematical brain, can you just calculate the probability of a third one doing it in 4 years? Number one. And number two, what are the
boy.
factors that are going to increase the chances?
I think a lot of it's coincidence. From a mathematical perspective, you got to look at the time that the Omega Dubai Desert Classic was played. How many of those players have won the Masters that same year? So if you look at it from that perspective, it's not likely, but in the small sample set that you gave me, yes, it's very, very likely that it would happen, right? So I would say that gives me a great feel and sense that may happen, but in preparation, you still got to go prepare and go out and execute and win, right? So it's not necessarily the case, but definitely makes me feel good, and I still have to go out there and execute every shot to the best of my ability. And if I don't do that, I'm still I wouldn't play well, you know. And I think that's what it more is about is executing the shots. And I think at that point in time with the Dubai Desert Classic champions, the previous, they were hitting it well and playing well leading up. I'm doing the same thing. So hopefully that shows through this week, but you never know.
Gene?
Bryson, with rain expected tomorrow, rain later in the week, how does that affect how you approach your prep work going into the tournament? And then once the tournament starts, if the rain comes through like they're saying it is?
Well, it affects moisture level, and that's going to affect the way a ball reacts on the face. You know, and there's a percentage to that, and we have to account for that. If you don't, you're going to hit it to 30, 40 feet instead of 10 feet. And so
Sorry, and then as far as the prep work going into Thursday, if it rains tomorrow, how does that affect your plans?
We just adjust. We adjust all our numbers based on the moisture level and the firmness value of the greens and all that. I mean, it's not difficult for us to measure our own firmness. We know relative to other golf courses how it lands in the green and how much it rolls for that. And then, you know, we hit the same iron into a green when we're practicing and see how much it rolls. Oh, there's a relative percentage to that. We know how to do it from there.
Gary, were you?
Oh, I just wanted to follow up on the flag sticks. Do you think it's going to be more of an advantage leaving the flag sticks in on the greens this week because the greens are so slope and so quick? And do you think other players will take advantage of it more often?
In certain situations, yeah. I think there's also a visual benefit to it. You know, you think about if anyone ever put a coffee mug on a green and they're putting to it, right? Seems like you can almost hit that coffee mug all day long, right? It's above ground, right? As soon as you put something into the ground, it's like, I got to hit it softer and let it fall in, right? And so there's also this psychological and visual aspect that is a benefit rather than just the geometry too.
Jesse. Have you seen the 1960 highlights where Palmer left the stick in on 16 and his long birdie putt clanged out? He was one behind Venturi at the time. And then, of course, he birdied 17 and 18 to win. But have you seen that highlight?
The Flagstick may have had a different firmness value back then. I don't know. I'd have to know. I don't know. I mean, yes. I mean, shoot, if you do hit it too hard, it's absolutely going to bounce out. But my goal is to hit it 2 feet past, and with the Flagsticks right now, I don't think that'll bounce out in any situation.
I just wondered if you'd actually seen that.
No,
okay.
No. I haven't, unfortunately. I'll go check that out. Thank you.
Jesse.
Bryson, you talked about casual golfers using one-length irons. I'm curious as to how close do you think we are to seeing fellow tour pros, whether on web.com or PGA Tour, following in your footsteps, becoming almost DeChambeau disciples, so to speak?
One-length disciples, not DeChambeau. I would say it's going to take a generational shift. So the kids that are playing with them now will not need to necessarily go to variable length. They'll be like, well, it performs just as good as the one lengths perform just as good as variable length. So why would I need to go to different lengths clubs? It's just going to make me feel a little weird. I think that's what it's going to take is a whole generation of kids starting to use it, utilize it, and become great players with it.
The tours now can't really unlearn what they've learned and
it's too much of a leap in their brains to go to a different way, and they've practiced this way for so long in that way that there's no real need to go back to it or go back to a different way because they have had such great success out here. And I think that people would say, well, that shows that it isn't that much of a benefit. And I would actually counter them that even though they are able to account for their different lengths and stuff. Growing up and starting out, it's a humongous leap from variable length to one length. One lengths are so much, you give kids one lengths, and it's just a tremendous difference in the ability to strike a 4-iron or 5-iron and a pitching wedge on the spot. You got a guy that's starting out with variable length clubs, they hit, their 8-iron or whatever you give them, and they go to 4 and they're like, I don't know how to hit. It takes them a long time for them to learn how to hit a 4-iron, and so there's this, I guess you could say, quantum leap from being able to learn how to hit these irons really quickly. And I think that's where it's going to make a big difference for a lot of people, is on the beginning level, and it'll just progress into the game over time. Will it dominate the market? I don't know. And if it doesn't, I'm okay with that. I really just want people to have that option so they can perform to the best of their ability.
Maybe just one more question. Jeff?
Bryson, how does the extension of the fifth hole change for you in terms of your approach to it, shot shape, just your whole attack plan?
So I'll tell you, the shot shape's going to be the same for me. I try and hit the same shot pretty much on any hole, except some holes where it's a massive dogleg right. It's the only time I'll change it. But then you're going to have like a 6-iron, 5-iron in. A lot of guys are hitting hybrids from what I heard yesterday, and I'm pretty impressed at that. It was a little into the wind, and it's difficult. It's going to be a very difficult hole. I like that they shallowed out the green a little bit, flattened it a little bit, and created a couple more accessible pins. So I think it's going to be, I think it's a great move, moving it away from the fourth green, the tee box away from the fourth green. And that's going to help speed up play. And so all in all, I think it's a great design change.
Well, Bryson, wishing you all the best this week. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.